Welcome to the Possibility Paradigm podcast, where we have conversations that are at the intersection of possibility, consciousness, actual experience, and energetic intelligence. The Possibility Paradigm are actually more than conversations. They're experiences that can change your tomorrows. Let's jump into today's episode. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Possibility Paradigm. I'm Grace Ambrook, your host. Here at the Possibility Paradigm, we have conversations at the intersection of possibility, consciousness, experience, and energetic intelligence and change. Today, I wanted to talk about the possibilities of moving beyond three patterns that I see where people start to grip onto things that are not working for them. So when we're gripping onto things that are not working for us, then we're disconnected from the possibilities. And so there are three energetic patterns. These are not the only ways, but they're common ways that people grip on to things that are not working for them. The first one is they get identified with that particular pattern. Even though they don't like it, they have an identification. They know themselves very well as that. That sounds like, oh, but that's just the way I am. That's an identification with something that doesn't work for you, that you're aware of, that you're so identified with, you're not actually prepared to give it up, even though you say you are, and that's what they call a split in the energy, and very little happens when your energy is split. A second way is when people are invested in it. So there is an investment in maintaining a particular position. So there is something that you feel good about yourself as a result of that occurring. So that might be, the investment might be in, oh, wow, I've overcome that as well. So you're invested in that hit of realizing that you have overcome it. And it's a little bit of a sideways thing, but I was talking with somebody the other day around the habit of the shiny, the shiny object syndrome, dopamine hunting, dopamine harvesting, and this investment is along those lines, right? It's like we get something from it, and we're prepared to, in some cases, do absolutely anything to get what is at the other side of it. So that's where we have an investment in it. And the third way, which is one that is certainly thrown around the personal development space quite a lot, is attachment. And there's a bit of, in energetics, nothing is that defined, right? There is a crossover. But when you're attached to something, that again is another split of energy. Like I'm attached to it, but I want it to go. I'm attached to it, but I want it to go. And again, there's a level of comfort in the discomfort. You know what it's like to get burnt in that frying pan. You know what it's like to feel rejected. And so you're attached to that experience, whether it's conscious, subconscious, or unconscious. And so having that framework for today's episode, my offering is to you that you have a look at when things aren't moving. Wow, do I have some sort of hidden attachment to this that I'm not aware of? Am I actually invested in, some sort of feel-good superstar kind of, well, not necessarily a superstar, but there will be some sort of feel-good payoff. Like, what is that investment? Payoff investment, right? And the other one was, is part of your identity actually associated with that that habit. So, as the youngest of 5 children, part of my identity used to be the perception that all my brothers and sisters used to see that, I'd get away with anything. And so there's part of an identity in there where, well, I didn't think I did, but they did, or the youngest of the family needs to be looked after. And so are you identified with the need to be looked after, even though you might be a very independent person, such as myself? What part of that identification every now and then of needing to be looked after is still at play? And so or identifying as a warrior, right? This is one actually that comes up quite a lot. And particularly as women, when we're changing the whole paradigm around the feminine and the feminine energy and who we are as women and what we contribute and how we, how we show up in the world. I don't do a lot of feminine masculine division because it's all part of the separation, and I'm really about unity, not about the polarities. But however, the what identification actually is a minimization of the possibility of you. And what identification is a minimization of the possibility of you. So it's a good thing to, just as I said, to ask yourself, is there a part of me that's identified with this pattern that you get really pissed off with, right? Are you so used to it that you're unconsciously have a sense of security in knowing that that shit has shown up again? And it's once you ask a question, then you can actually open up a whole lot of other possibilities, and your choosing can become conscious rather than unconscious, because you're attached, identified, or invested in this pattern in some way. It's an absolute freedom breaker when you learn to apply it without judgment. There's a trick. And without, where did it go? Without a judgment, and allowing it to be an awareness that actually opens up greater choice for you, right? And the truth is that we need to actually choose life. Like the universe is continuously putting things in front of us. We do actually need to choose it. And when it comes to choice, I'd also add that a choice is not just a thought. A choice is actually an action. You need to do something. And again, I introduced to you the be doing, right? So we're not a doing machine. It's not do, 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 do. Who are you being? And then when you're being that, what are you doing? So I call it the be do approach. Excuse me, I'm going to have this quick sip of water here. And so, and that being requires us again to go into this bigger space of who we are. And that bigger space, as we know, is sourced but not confined or defined to the space of the infinite heart. And we are so programmed currently to work from the intellect, from achievement, from attainment, and and generally speaking, a very mechanistic approach, right? And so, and that mechanical approach too keeps us locked in and gripping certain habits, because we're functioning from a this then that only mental approach to life. And the truth is that life is way bigger than that, and the possibilities are much bigger than conditional thinking and conditional approaches. If you are aware that when I hit a key on the keyboard, it creates an O on the screen, I don't see that as a condition. I see that as part of creation, right? You can't hit every key and get an O. And so when we're locked into mechanical, defined pathways, we miss out on a lot of what is actually in the universe. So, and we can be unconsciously replicating and preserves, like be stuck in these self-serving, mechanistic approaches to life, which is not connected to the infinite possibilities. And as all of us begin to cultivate this inner connection, this inner possibility, this possibilities of the infinite heart, you'll understand that there is an innate intelligence, and you are part of that intelligence that goes way bigger than the field of thinking. And the source of all of those brilliances is here. And then the information gets sent to the brain and the mind, and the brain and mind then work with it. But most people operate backwards. It's the same thing when I introduce people to the concept that, intuition and intellect are not enemies. Most people just have it round the wrong way. They try to get to intuitive through the intellect. If you get an intuitive hit on something, I will guarantee you it is completely logical. The outworking of that is logical when you get out of the way of your veiling and your mechanistic approach. If you try and make your intuition mechanical, you'll miss the point, and that goes into those pathways of hardship. The intuition, though, like often it happens like reverse engineering, when it all comes to fruition and you look back, you go, oh my God, that was so obvious, like, right? But when we hunt out the obvious from here, we will never find it. When we develop the ability, because we're not attached, identified, or invested, when we open this space here and have an allowance for things outside of what we could have ever imagined, then things definitely change. You follow through on that, you choose and action that, and your life will change 100%, 100%. And so the energy that we're emanating changes by the conscious connection to this space of possibilities. Conscious connection to this space of possibilities changes the way that you perceive things, which means it changes the way you will receive things, which it means it changes the way that you will create your life. And in that space, there's an infinite menu of possibilities in here. There's not that you get to choose, right? There's not an approach of, I have to choose this because that will mean I can pay the mortgage. When you go in here, it includes paying the mortgage because life and the universe is not about struggle. Programming is about struggle because it keeps you limited and confined and defined and attached and invested and identified, right? There's nothing in here that says, oh, if you do that, you will be financially in financial difficulties. That is the programming and your energetic and physical reality. What is your financial reality? What is your financial fluidity? And again, there's certainly areas that require some modification. That modification becomes substantially easier when you're living in possibilities and you're not identified with financial struggle. You're not invested in it some way so you can be a hero, and you're not attached to all the friendships that you have around, financial battles. And so again, what's the word? This conscious connection back to this space completely opens up your world. The mind is based on polarity. Even most of the teaching around the functionality of the brain, unfortunately, is still classified in spheres, and the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And as polarity dynamics collapse in this reality, there will be greater understanding of the interconnectivity, and we'll find a different language. I'm not criticizing it. That language around how the brain works in terms of the hemispheres has been extremely helpful. It's a tiny, 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 tiny representation of the capacity of brain functionality. And you add that to receiving intelligence, source intelligence from the heart up to the brain. Do you think your brain is going to function differently? Right? Hello. Do you think those patterns of stress and anxiety might actually somehow kind of shift because there's a greater conscious connection to the possibility of you and all the wonder and awe and play and ease and glory in that? Do you think? Or should I say, do you know? Do you know that's a possibility for you? And will you allow yourself to get out of the how and just connect with whoever drops into your universe, me, some of the guests on the podcast, other people that you're aware of, who will take you to higher consciousness beyond some of the programming that actually exists in also in the personal development world, right? Or in the energy world. And so not from here, from here. All the people who work with me kind of don't know why they're working with me until they work with me. And then they go, oh, I completely know why I'm working with you, right? And they have the courage to step into that little space of unknown at the beginning, and then it all becomes so incredibly clear, which is exactly why the heart is how, in inverted commas, the heart works, that or that intuitive hit. Or it's not really, well, that's a conversation for another day, the difference between intuition and knowing. You know, one of my catchphrases is know what you know, be who you be, create what you came here to create. And that requires a conscious connection, not a one that is stuck in meditative practices, one that goes way beyond meditative practice. This is a conscious connection. This is a pulsation of energy, of information, of connectivity, of empowerment, of light that is consciously moving you and you moving it together simultaneously through your world, through your arguments with your boss, through your difficulty with your employees, through your troubled teenager, through your discussions with the tax office when they're on your back. It's in everything, everything, everything. It becomes your everything, everything and nothing and everything. It's not a part, it's not a hobby, right? It's the truth of who you are, this pulsation of energy, this pulsation of possibility. It's what you came here for, and it's what you came here to be. And you have this unique way of expressing it. Like, how awesome is that? And if you weren't identified or attached or invested in staying very human program only, do you think things would change in your life? Just a simple yes or no will suffice. Is that of interest to you? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you love being identified, attached, and invested in things. Go for it. But any awareness is great, right? And so you can be aware of something and still choose what could be called an interesting, make an interesting decision, but you're doing it from choice. You know, no choice is a very dead place. It's just horrible. Sorry, I just see so many people who think they are in no choice, right? And as much as it seems bizarre, there is actually always a choice. A conversation for another day, perhaps. So we have, when you move out of attachment, investment, and identification, you have access to a portal of greater consciousness. And when we access that connection, everything becomes a part of, like you become literally the living energetics of life itself. And the co-creation and the choosing become so interesting. They become so much, in inverted commas, easier, not without still certain levels of trepidation, but still easier, right? You can be scared by something and still do it. I do it all the time. You can be challenged by something. Some of the things that I'm looking at investing in at the moment require me to develop a whole new vocabulary and a whole new awareness of how some amazing people have not been identified with the way things actually used to work, but created whole new systems. And within this whole new system, there's a whole lot of new languaging. Is it challenging? Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally. Am I attached to the old ways? Nope, because I do this consciously, right? I'm not attached to the old ways. I know they exist. Am I invested in the old ways? Had to do some clearing around that, totally. And am I identified with it? I did lots of clearing of identification when I became a clear channel for the universe. I needed to know who I am and who I'm not, and what I am and what I'm not, to be a clear channel. That's my perception, and it works for me. And so you may have a completely different one, and that's okay as long as it works for you, right? And so, this pathway of possibility has ease in it, within it, but it also has growth. When a seed pushes through the soil, that is kind of like a push energy, right? Or it can stay a seed, not crack open its case. There's an energetic dynamic in that. And the more that you play with nature and look at the energetic dynamics that are playing out in nature, then the more inspired you will be within your own life also to actually, I don't know that it's more like an allowance of an energy to be you. You run that energy through you. How much more fun is that than getting all the hard work done? Will you allow that energy to run through you? Will you be that energy that takes like a blossom on a branch, and then there's an energy shift, right, that goes pop, and it starts to bloom? What is the energy inside a cocoon? What happens in there, right? And the caterpillar and the cocoon are not attached, identified, or invested in anything. They're in a cocoon doing this more and more. In fact, I'll do an episode, I think, on the self-organizing, the expansion of the self-organizing energy and its contribution to humanity's consciousness at the moment. That's a fun place to explore. If you'd like to make sure that you get that, please subscribe to the podcast, and I'll put all the links below this episode in the episode notes. What do they call them? Episode notes. Sometimes I find the landing language more difficult when I'm in this very spacious space. But all the details will be below for you, along with actually also something that you might find interesting. There's I have a playbook there around unveiling your missing piece, and it's a good introductory start to begin to move the energy differently in your body. I can't off the top of my head remember whether it addresses the major topic of today, but it's all filled with activations of opening up your consciousness and your awareness and your possibilities. So if there is a possibility for you, I've placed it on the table. It's up to you to choose or not choose. And I want to thank you all again for listening today, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.